Okay, I'm with Tiri Hughes, who is a third year medical student at Oxford University. Thank you for joining us for our latest Q&A in our science fair. I suppose without further ado, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're studying and what you're doing.
Yeah, sure, thanks. So I'm Tiri and I am a third year medical student at Oxford. So at the moment I'm in a kind of research year. Oxford do this thing where between preclinical and clinical medicine, you could kind of take a year out and specialize in something and research it. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, which is great. I'm in the lab all the time, like literally with pipettes and cells and very like kind of scientisty. And then after that, I'll be, going up to the hospital and working on clinical studies. So yeah, that's what I'm up to at the moment.
And it's your third year of how many?
Third year of 6, yeah. So years 1 and 2 are like preclinical. So you do all of the science around medicine. And then year 3 is this research year, and years 4, 5, and 6 is clinical at the hospital. That's just how Oxford do it. They're like other universities are different. Most universities, you do kind of clinical and preclinical mixed the whole way through, and the degree is only 5 years. But because of this research year that we kind of sandwich in, it's like an extra degree we do in that year that is normally optional. But everyone does it at Oxford.
And what's the plan then after you finish your degree? What are you hoping to move into?
So when I'm done, I'll enter the like foundation doctor program. So like when you hear about junior doctors, the very, very junior ones. So it's called F1 and then F2. So you do that for a few years and then you kind of specialize and move into sort of a pathway of specializing in a particular area. I don't really know exactly what I want to do yet. I don't think many people do at this point in med school. I think there are things I don't really want to do. Like definitely don't want to do orthopedics because like everyone has something they're squeamish about, and for me it's like bone noises.
That's pretty understandable.
Yeah, like that's just my thing that I don't like. And I don't think I'll be doing surgery because I actually just don't think I'm well suited to it. I think it requires like a very high level of visual acuity that I don't have. But I'm really interested in like cancer sciences, so something like oncology maybe would be good.
And it's not something that it's not like some degrees where you can kind of you can do it on a little bit of a whim. It's something that once you're into it, you're fully committed to it. And I think science and STEM has played quite a big part in your life growing up.
Yeah, definitely. I've always been very sort of like interested in science, pretty much all science and how stuff works. I remember like in year 3, I voluntarily wrote an essay for a teacher. Obviously, no one was writing essays in year 3, so this was a bit weird, on geology. And I wrote about like the 3 types of rock. And I was like, can you mark this? Because I'd watched American TV and was obsessed with the concept of getting like A, B, and C, because you don't get that in primary school. So yeah, I've always loved science. And I did my GCSEs and did triple science. Also always loved maths, which I think helps with some sciences. Had a pretty rough time in secondary school in terms of accessibility. It was not a very good time, and I ended up going to the Royal National College for the Blind to do my A-levels, which was really good from an accessibility perspective, and they were great, but also they didn't really teach science at the time, because there aren't that many people who seem to want to do it, although hopefully now that they are doing some more science, that will be better. But yeah, I did biology and chemistry A-levels and maths and further maths A-levels.
Blimey, so
yeah, and I also did psychology A-levels. Sorry, I forgot. Wow. But I did chemistry actually at the local mainstream sixth form to Hereford, because with all the lab stuff it wasn't offered. So I did that with the support of RNC, whereas I did biology in-house and we used the labs for sixth form, which went really well. And I had a mixture of like very small group teaching and sort of normal class size. But yeah, absolutely loved it, and now I'm here.
And I suppose obviously doing A-levels at RNC, as we know, they've got great facilities, be very supportive. When you moved to Oxford, did you find were there more challenges and more difficulties, perhaps more barriers with your vision impairment, having to arrange extra things with the university, or were they quite accommodating? As you know, you hear very conflicting stories from different universities and different students on their experiences.
Yeah, I think like generally pretty good. It is always difficult, I think, going from a specialist setting to a mainstream setting at any level, because you do get a bit used to kind of just having everything. And although it would be absolutely wonderful if the whole world was like the inside of RNC, where you get offered like 10 different formats when you walk into a room, it's just not like that. I think because of how bad the experience I had at secondary school was, I was kind of prepared for a fight when I got here and didn't really have to do that. So it exceeded expectations. It's by no means been perfect, but it's a lot better than the experience I had at secondary school.
Yeah.
But I do think if I had not been careful, I would have sort of been quite complacent, because I spent 3 years at RNC, and it's quite easy to forget that a lot of things outside of there are not so accessible. But I applied for disabled students allowance, and there's a disability advisory service in Oxford University, and I was in touch with them from the moment I got my offer, beforehand actually, to check that interviews would be accessible. And I've got like a student support plan, is what we call it, which sort of lists, it's a bit like an IEP or a EHCP for uni. Yeah. But you know, I'm an adult, I have full control over that. It goes to tutors if I want them to see it, doesn't if they don't, if I don't want them to see it. And everyone's been pretty good, you know, a lot of goodwill and good sort of intentions, occasionally slightly like things go a bit wrong, but I'm very good at advocating for myself, probably because of secondary school. And if you can advocate for yourself well, everything is okay, really. Sometimes I think it's easy for things to fall through the net at a university level. So it's really important to sort of be really kind of out there and just say, like, this is what I need, this is how I need it, this is when I need it, and that's how I'm going to get the same experience as all of my like non-disabled peers. So that's your job now. And I think that's kind of just how you have to do it.
Yeah, to be an advocate for yourself is really important. But what's positive, it sounds like you've got a lot of control over the support that you're receiving, and you can request that when you need to. In terms of sort of more specifically about your studying, have you got all the support and been able to access everything that you need to support you with your degree? It's a six-year degree, so they know that they've got you for the long term, and want to obviously get you to your career goals. So have they been supportive in everything you've needed for your studying?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I came in over in the summer before I started and did loads of kind of mobility, learning how to get around, which the faculty that I was going to be at and the college that I'm at were both really accommodating of. And, you know, they had people who'd meet me and show me around. I could have a look at rooms. In terms of kind of medicine specific things, I've got a setup where essentially I always have electronic copies of all the slides. Because they're shown, you know, on a big projector, and I can't see that. Yeah. And actually, it's something that everyone has now. I think they've been slowly bringing it in so that all the slides are uploaded online. But now it's kind of, because it's an accessibility point, they really have to be there. Yeah. And just in case there's a problem with technology, everyone always gets printed off a set of slides. I get mine 1 slide to a page in color. Everyone else's are like 4 slides to a page, black and white. Yeah. So I've got my special slides at the front. And then when we do like, in first and second year, we do a lot of microscope work, and I can't look down like the binoculars of a microscope properly. So I've got this special adapted one with like a hub on top of the microscope that's electronic, and it in some magical way connects to an iPad. So I can look just on an iPad screen at what's going on, which is amazing. And actually, I think everyone should have it, because you can, when you're learning, you can kind of point to a cell and say, what's that? Which is much harder in a microscope. You have to sort of say, what's the 13th cell from the left if you look down the left one?
Well, like, you're right. And actually, you're saying, oh, my special slides at the front, but actually being able to print off a set of slides in color, 1 slide a page, it's not some of these adaptations are not that difficult for
no, they're really quite basic, and having all the slides online is something that like everyone needs anyway. So I just have the kind of added thing that if someone doesn't do it, I can say, look, I really need this to be here. And like sometimes lecturers would do it after the lecture, not before. And I was like, no, I need it during the lecture, because I'm not looking at the slides while you're talking. I'm looking at my version of your slides.
Exactly, yeah.
And mostly, you know, it's been pretty good. They let me have so we have lockers that we put stuff in when we're going into labs, and I had a locker in a more accessible place. because I've got a guide dog, and she obviously can't go in the wet labs because it wouldn't be safe.
Yeah.
There's lots of kind of chemicals around. So she would always be looked after for me by the people who worked in the administrative office in the med school, which they absolutely loved. They got a bed in there. I didn't buy her the bed. Somebody went and bought her a bed so she would be okay. I was like, it's only a couple of hours. She doesn't need a bed. She'll have a bed.
She's made herself at home.
Yeah, so they look after her. And when I was looking for a lab project for what I'm doing this year, I spoke to them quite early on about what I would need. They've also got a similar microscope set up for me. And other than that, a lot of it I adapt myself. Like I've got little clip-on to my glasses, magnifiers and monoculars. So some close stuff I do at the lab, I use those. A lot of time it's just being a bit kind of rude and saying, sorry, I need to be in front of you because I can't see this. Like when we do dissections.
Well, I think that's important.
I just say, sorry, I need to be there.
You know what works for you, and it's important to get that across to whoever needs to hear it. This, you know, I need this and that to access the course. So no, that makes absolute sense. And if a 6-year degree,
no, they've been really good.
If a 6-year degree wasn't busy enough, you're also chair of your university disability campaign. Is that right?
Yeah. So we have a campaign for disabled students at Oxford as part of the student union. And yeah, I chair that group. So we kind of do a mix of campaigning, which is mostly for like changes within the university or sometimes things to do with like Oxford as a city. But also we like run socials for disabled students and events. And sometimes we team up with other other groups within the university and do kind of joint things. And we run a lot of Facebook groups for people to sort of chat to other disabled students, and it's really successful. Like it's extra work, but I really enjoy doing it.
Oh, brilliant. And just sort of finally, for any advice for young students that are looking to follow a similar career path? Obviously, it's quite a probably quite an intense career path that you're about to follow. But for anyone that's looking to do something similar, what would be your key advice for them?
So I think, you know, like you said earlier, medicine is really not something you can kind of do on a whim, partly because the application process is quite long. You have to do entrance exams. So I think starting to think about it as early as possible. Like if you're thinking about medicine, particularly like medicine with the view to becoming a doctor rather than like medical research, like a biomed science degree, which are also really great and I highly recommend, then it's good to start kind of as early as you can and start looking at different universities, getting in touch with them, seeing if they've had a visually impaired medical student before, getting in touch with other visually impaired medical students. I've got some friends who are sort of a few years ahead of me in the sort of pathway of becoming a doctor. Some of them are now doctors, who've been absolutely invaluable resources. But I think that the main thing is kind of work out what you need to achieve everything and then be quite forward about saying that you need it, because people are usually really willing to help, but often don't know how. So yeah, spending a bit of time kind of going, right, these are the things I need to achieve. How can I do them? And, you know, looking online for a different kind of magnifier. This was my main issue, was I was like, I need a magnifier that I don't need my hands for. I need it to be attached to me somehow. And just a bit of Googling achieved that. So definitely kind of stick up for yourself, I think is what I'm saying. Work out what you need and then stick up for it.
I think that is a lovely and important note to end on. So thank you very much for joining us for our science fair.